I'm going to come this side because the slides are up here. Thanks very much indeed. First of all, what we've been asked to talk about is not so much the plan itself, because with 180 points and our auditors sitting in the audience, which is a bit of a shock when we say everything's audited, and the 4 members of Ernst & Young, including the director, Doug. So thanks, Doug, for coming along. What we want to talk about is the why and the how. Why we're doing this as an organisation, what narrative that gives us to be able to lead colleagues in the organisation through this sustainability journey, and how we've gone about that. So Mike and I have just drawn a nice little straight line down the middle, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the corporate strategy and the governance. Mike will then come on to talk about how we've implemented it in the organisation and how we engage people across the organisation. And then what we're really keen to get onto is the Q&A, because then we know we're meeting your needs if we're asking the questions that you're answering. So, first of all, why Plan A? Well, in 2007, because there's no Plan B. Very, very brief journey. A very brief journey back to the beginning anyway. This was 2007. It was a time when Sir Stuart Rose was in the chair and the business was having a bit of a purple patch. We were doing extremely well, and Sir Stuart was keen that we built again on what Marks & Spencer stood for in the consumer's mind, doing the right thing. What did the consumer expect, and how could we communicate more effectively some of the things we did? He was looking for one thing that we could be famous for, just one thing. And what we found, and Mike was the head of CSR at the time and I was the construction director at the time, is that when various bits of the business identified what that one thing was, in simple terms, we ended up with a list of about 100. We put that in a plan, and that became our Plan A. There's a slightly longer story than that, but in essence, it was about these are the things that are important to Marks & Spencer in its direction. And we put that plan together and we put it out into the marketplace. Why did we do it? And why do we continue to do the things we are? Well, this is the key slide that we use in creating that burning platform, engaging our colleagues across the organisation. So many of you will have met John Beddington, you'll know of his work. This is his perfect storm. These are the key facts that we use on a very regular basis to engage our colleagues across the organisation. Of course we use the climate change debate, of course we use carbon, of course we use all our own metrics of sustainability, but these simple facts about resource efficiency and a scarcity agenda that's rapidly upon us is what drives us forward. So in 2007, we embarked upon our first 100-point plan across 5 key pillars: climate, waste, raw materials, fair partner, which is our people pillar, and health. And we brought those targets to bear across our own organisation plus the supply chain. And you can see there are some fairly significant numbers in that supply chain. So as we approach 2012, we'll hit next year, and we will be carbon neutral from the 1st of January next year. We'll have improved our energy efficiency by a quarter. We won't be sending anything to landfill, and at the beginning it was about 80% was going to landfill. We will have reduced our packaging by a quarter. All our fish and wood will come from most sustainable sources, and we'll be delivering new services in the energy market to 500,000 customers. Those are just 1 or 2 of the things that we will have achieved across the group. But we see this as part of a key journey. And this is actually one of Mike's slides, but I think it articulates the journey for Marks & Spencer incredibly well. If you look back in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, it was about employee welfare, it was about philanthropy, it increasingly came about community investment. Then in response to probably the riots in the, 80s, Mike, or something, we started the whole phrase of corporate social responsibility. But it was still not, in its broadest sense, integral to everything that we did. Now, the values of our business meant that, if anything, we were probably in the good boys camp and doing more of the things you would expect a large corporate to do. But was it a key driver to the direction of the organisation? No, it wasn't. So we launched Plan A in 2007, and that's a part of a journey. And increasingly, it's about how we do business. It's about part of the decision-making process of everything we do. And you can see there our long-term ambition. There's not necessarily a date on that long-term ambition, but it's directional. We want to be a business that's carbon positive. that wastes nothing, that's regenerative to environments, and has a positive effect on people's lives. And if you work with those simple motherhood and apple pie statements, but if you work with them, it does take a lot of things out of the equation. What it has now become is a key part of our corporate strategy. So that is the key corporate strategy slide that our CEO uses to the city and across the business, and it outlines Marks & Spencer's strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years. And what's key is that alongside that, we have the corporate sustainability plan and how Plan A fits in that at the moment, between 2010 and 2013, the principal franchise with the customer is that they trust us. But the product proposition, whilst developing, has still got a long way to go in terms of delivering the goods and services that we're going to need on the other side of the sustainability revolution. And a lot of the work we've done has been about our own operations. And as you see there from the plan, and we've committed now that half our products by 2015 and all of them by 2020 will have a sustainability attribute about them. There'll be something sustainable about the products, every one of the ones we sell, but also that we increase the amount of work we do on the operational efficiency throughout the whole supply chain. And we've got lots of examples of where that's already happening, but we're looking for a completely systemic approach to our supply chain. And that sits very comfortably and is easily articulated. It rolls off our CEO's tongue as to how those two plans sit comfortably together as one. So how are we delivering the plan? Well, I think it was you mentioned earlier about the handover from one CEO to another. This is a plan that was clearly born under Sir Stuart Rose. We have been under the guidance of Mark Bolland for the last 12 months, and we've had a new chairman as well for the last 12 months. That moment in time where one plan moves from a CEO to an incoming CEO can be incredibly risky. And we've all seen plans that fall by the wayside with a change in leadership. What the incoming senior management team have identified is the huge benefit that we're deriving from Plan A and how it is part of what we do as an organisation. And then far be it from it stepping back, if anything, with the change in leadership, it stepped on to a whole new level. We have an executive how we do business committee that is now populated by all the executive directors, so it's effectively the executive board, plus a number of us who support that. We have retained and have a full director responsible to sustainability, and I report direct to the CEO. And we have a small central team that work through me. It is only 11, though, and I know some organisations have huge central teams, but there are only 11 of us, which includes myself, Mike, and our secretary. We have an operational how we do business committee that I chair, which is the key operational directors that meets monthly and reports into the executive committee. And what's probably key is that we have very clear, publicly stated targets that are devolved across the organisation. My role is to report and ensure that we deliver against the plan, to innovate and to manage the normal stream of CSR activity in terms of liaising with our partners, etc. But the accountability for delivering the bulk of the targets rests with the operational areas. And the executive team are bonused, cash bonused accordingly. There are very clear, smart KPIs in their cash bonus that are for every executive director. We have comprehensive audit and reporting framework. Thank you, Ernst & Young, and I think we probably externally audit more than any other organisation. 40 of the original targets are fully externally audited each year. And the executive board and the CEO are supported and challenged and directed both by Jonathan Porritt, who we retain for 12 days a year, I think now we have Jonathan. In fact, he's been with us all day today, plus an external international advisory board who are doing some fantastic work with us on both the ambition to be the most sustainable retailer, but also the internationalisation of Plan A, given that the corporate strategy is to extend our international reach much further than it currently is. So, why? Because it's hugely important to the organisation and its brand. Why? Because it's hugely important to us, given the changes that are going to affect our business in the short, medium and long term. How? very clear targets, very clear accountability across the organisation, and very clearly leader-led. And that wasn't just from the first leader, that continues on to the second leader. So, to put a little bit more flesh on that, Mike.
Thank you, Richard.